All right, guys, good day today. So we're going to go ahead and start our Unit 4 exam review. So this is going to be part 1. We'll have another section of questions that we'll go over tomorrow. So let's go ahead and get started. So our first question says, what is the sum of the solutions to the equations x squared plus 4x minus 3? Okay, so this is two things first. First, we want to make sure that we solve for solutions. Okay, and so we can do that multiple ways. You can use it by factoring, you can solve it using the quadratic formula that we just learned this week, or you can solve it using Desmos. Well, I'm going to go ahead and solve this using Desmos. I plugged in the equation just the way it is. Okay, and I solve here that one solution is -3 and the other one being at -1. So we would say x equals -3 and x equals -1. Now these are not our answers here. These are just the solutions for this quadratic. The question is asking us for the sum. That means that they want us to add these two. So we would do -3 plus a -1, okay, which is -4. If you're not sure how to do this type of math, or you struggle, you can also do this on Desmos as such. Okay, now I want you guys to try on this slide. So on this slide, you would go through the same steps, but I've already gone ahead and got you started with the actual Desmos work. So I'll let you identify the values and what to do on this question. Please be sure that you update the Pear Deck notes with your solutions here. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. All right, so let's look at this question here. It says, consider the following equation. Y equals x squared plus 6x plus 6, and x minus y equals 0.25. Which quadrant do these lines intersect? Okay, so they just want to know where the lines cross. Where do the lines cross? Okay, and they want to know based off quadrants. If you remember on your quadrants, when we set up our quadrant system, this is quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. So which quadrant, 1, 2, 3, or 4, is our intersection going to cross on? So what I did here is I graphed the first equation. I then, okay, right, this one here. I then graphed the second equation here. And I'm looking for where they intersect, which is here. Well, if we look at this quadrant system, we see this is at 1. This here is quadrant 2. This here is quadrant 3. And this here is quadrant 4. So as far as where our intersections are at, we will be in quadrant 3. Okay? And that's how we would solve a question like this. Well, now it's your turn. I want you to try the exact same steps here. Make sure that you identify the correct quadrants. If you cannot remember where your quadrants are or how to identify them, remember, we set up our grid system. This is quadrant 1. Here's quadrant 2. Here's quadrant 3 and quadrant 4. Okay, please be sure that you update your Pear Deck with the solutions for these last two problems. Let's go ahead and move on to the next question. Okay, it says, which of the following represents the solution to the inequality 3x squared plus 2x minus 5 is less than or equal to 0? Wow, okay, so we could do this by hand, okay, or we can be using Desmos. And because this is a timed test, we're going to be using Desmos for this. Calculator is permitted. And so what I've done here is I have graphed this into Desmos, and I'm looking for my intersection points. Okay? So I know that I'm going from negative 1.667, okay, or which we could also see this as negative 1 2/3, or this might also be represented as negative 7/3. Okay, actually this would be negative 8/3. And we're going to 1. Same thing, going to 1, going to 1. So how would we represent this in the correct forms? Well, we're including these, right? Because it's also equal to. So our solution sets would go from, we use brackets because it's inclusive, negative 1.667, comma 1. Or we could say negative 1 2/3, comma 1. Or we could also say negative 8/3, comma 1. Okay. And I apologize, I'm just realizing this is not an 8, this should be a 5. But nonetheless, you guys get the idea. Okay, so now I want you all to try based off of the Desmos work. So here's your question, here's your equation. If you're not sure, you want to check your work on this, go ahead and plug the equation into Desmos. Here's the equation. Here's my Desmos work. So give me the solution set. Please make sure that you update the Pear Deck for the last 2 questions before you finish off for the day. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. So what is the factored form of the expression? So this one was interesting. So we did these here. So when I have 25x squared plus 64, if you'll recall, when we do these, we could also set these equal to 0, and we'd end up getting 25x squared equals negative 64. Divide both sides by 25. Okay, and so we get x squared equals negative 64/25. We have to take the square root, and it's like, uh-oh, we're going to have problems here because we're taking the square root of a negative number. So we don't want to do this when we're trying to factor. Remember, we want to factor into 2 binomials. So what we had to do is we had to identify our a and our b. And we use the equation a plus bi times a plus, I'm sorry, not plus, it's actually a minus bi. Okay? And so in order to get these a values, we're going to take 25x squared, and we have to take the square root of this. Well, 25 squared is 5, x squared is x, and then we would do the same with our 64. 64, take the square root of that, is 8. And so this is our a, this is our b. So our answer for this one, if we take a is 5x, plus bi, well, b is 8. You can't forget those i's. Okay, we stressed that in the lesson that we did 2 weeks ago. Times a is 5x minus 8i. So again, to recap the steps on this, You identify your a and your b, and you take the square root of them, right? We're taking the square roots here to get your a and your b, and you plug them into this formula here. Okay, now it's your turn. You're going to do the exact same thing here. If for some reason on this 18, if you are not able to take the square root of that, you can leave it as is. That is okay. All right, guys, so this is the end of the review. So you have a total of 8 questions. I have done 4 of them. I do want to see the work for those 4 on the Pear Deck. The other 4, I do want to see you guys do your own work on that. I will be taking this review as a grade, so please make sure that your Pear Deck is complete before the day of the test. Okay, have a great day, guys. If you have any questions, please message me on Teams, and we'll see you all later.